Now I'm very excited to welcome back David Delano from GetSportsStrong.com. You can find David on X at GetSportsStrong and on Sports Grid. Dave, thanks for coming back on the show. It's been a minute. How is your season going for you?
You know what? This has been a weird year in college football. I started off the first 3 weeks just incredibly hot, and now man, I've had some bad breaks these last 3 weeks. It's been going like that. I've had a couple of it's been one of those things where I don't play teasers in college football just personally, but it's been frustrating because the losses that I've had, it's almost been like I'd hit everything if I was just teasing them. I've had so many half point losses as far as like the Auburn, was one of the games plus 6.5 last week. The Tulsa game just going barely not going over the total. So I've had a lot of half a point, 1.5 point losses, backdoor covers, things like that.
Yeah.
But looking to get the ship right. Point being, it's been about mediocre. We had a very dominant, strong half. Now struggling a little bit, but looking to get back on track and pick your brain a little bit.
That's great. Me too. Pick yours. And it's funny. I've had some of that luck. Here's the thing about it. It's so funny. It's like if you cover some of your games by like a ton, and then your losers are just by like a half point or a point, whatever, that means you're a good capper, even though you're 50-50, right? It doesn't mean because you're right. You're just so close on some of them, but you're getting the variance, right? You're getting the bad variance kind of hitting you. So I totally get that, my
Yeah.
man. But it's great to have you back and talk a little football, a little pigskin, and I always like to ask a little bit about futures. I'm curious if you played any this year. I've played plenty. I've lost my share. I have a few going, but anything sticking out to you?
Well, when we kind of talk about the Heisman odds, I mean, you don't necessarily want to just roll with the favorites. I think that right now I've seen it at plus 550, and there's still a book out there that is plus 800 by the time a lot of people hear this. I'm not sure if it'll still be out there, but I like a Ty Simpson as far as for the Heisman right now. I mean, having a strong year for Alabama, 21 touchdowns, one interception, really going under the radar. And Julian Sand getting a lot of the love along with Mendoza. Thing with Sand and Mendoza, those prices, they're obviously the favorites. I think that Ohio State's strength of schedule, I still think that Michigan game is going to be a little bit of a challenge. Line looking way ahead, still only at 5.5. Point being, I think that for Simpson, there's the odds when you look at how big of a favorite that Sand is right now that they could slip up. Alabama, when you look at the strength of schedule, the wins already over Georgia, Vandy. They've got a big game against Oklahoma coming up. SEC title. I think that when you look at the value there, that is one of the futures that I'm on right now. Another future going under the radar, and I think it was a future that I liked last time we were kind of talking about as far as, you know, I guess I could also say this as far as like buy low, but I think SMU right now, when you look at the path in the ACC at plus 600, I have a future there to win the conference because a lot of people have been down on them, but their losses, mostly out of conference, they did have that to slip up against Wake Forest, but this is a team starting to trend in the right direction again. And when you look at what's at top there with Virginia and so many of the other teams in the ACC, it's still wide open. And a lot of those teams, almost everybody has a losable game. So I think that door is open for the SMU Mustangs to win the conference, especially at plus 600. I definitely think that's worth a shot.
No, it's a wonderful number. I mean, do they get past Louisville at home, which should be close to a pick 'em, and that's in 2 weeks. That's a great number on SMU. Then you go to Cal. That should be a win. That means they're playing in the SEC, the championship most likely because Virginia's going to crap out, I think, again. And they already beat Miami, so they got the nod to play ahead of Miami in the championship game against Georgia Tech. Man, yeah, I mean Georgia Tech. I think they're an overrated team themselves. Absolutely. That's a great look right there. And the Heisman, sure. I do have a little saying. I have a little Mendoza, but I am a little worried that one of them screws up along the way here. And I expect Indiana to beat Purdue, Wisconsin, but you never know. And there's always that rivalry factor with Purdue and Illinois, Ohio State never seems to beat Michigan every year. So I get what you're saying there. there may be a little bit of value. So good stuff. I took JMU to make the playoffs a while ago. And I got plus 600. They're plus 250 now. And you have South Florida is the only one in the way of them, right? With the group of 5 at plus 125. Here's the weird thing about it. How do you put Notre Dame and South Florida in ahead of Miami when Miami also has 2 losses? It's just such a bad look. They blew out South Florida. It's like you're seriously putting them in. I mean, it makes you look stupid. But here's where the committee messed up, I think, too. I think that they should never have put in South Florida ahead of James Madison, because James Madison, do I have them power rated lower? Yeah, a little bit, not a lot, but it's still going to screw them at the end, because what they're going to want to do is put Notre Dame in just by their high ranking on Notre Dame in the top 10. And they're going to want to have an excuse to keep Miami out, but you can't just put South Florida in. That's just insulting. So, man, I don't know, man. That kind of leads me to my playoff committee question for you a little bit. I mean, what are they doing over there? Do you agree with what they're doing?
Man, it's one of these things. It's really college football has just been so wild this year. I mean, just as far as like no rhyme or reason of how many things have happened. I mean, obviously Alabama, a top 4 team right now. But even when you look back at early in the season, how they lost that, and the loss I had early in the year, how they lost to Florida State. And I know that seems like centuries ago at this point, but there's just so many results that we've had that just have not made a lot of sense. So I guess I'd ask you, and I do think that as far as what you pointed out, as far as that bias early on in the season, it still happened. I know the game was in Miami, but Notre Dame, they did lose to Miami. So to have Miami, behind Notre Dame doesn't make a lot of sense. But I want to ask you this, like, what do you think is the biggest discrepancy? Like, is there any team that's left out right now that you really are just clearly saying they've got this wrong on?
Well, let me quick pull it up. That's a great question. Here's the thing. What are we doing? Are we doing most deserving, or are we doing straight power? Because straight power, I have some discrepancies when it comes to straight power. And straight power, BYU is not the 12th team. They're not. I mean, I don't have BYU. I like BYU. They're a cool team. They're fun. They seem to be really well coached over the last few years too, and I respect that. But BYU is not even close to my top 12 when it comes to power ratings, and Virginia is not 19th for me. Believe it or not, I think Oregon should be higher. Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm pulling up my power ratings, just taking me a minute. Usually I have the screen open, but I had to refresh. I have Ole Miss at number 10. I believe it or not, Utah, I have a little bit higher, but not much. I have them at like number 11 from a power perspective, and I actually have Texas below Utah. So that's my big discrepancy. But the truth is, I mean, from a power perspective, this ain't a bad rating. My top 3 is Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M in my power ratings, but I have Texas Tech ahead of Georgia and Alabama. And Alabama's shown some holes this year. I have Oregon, 5th. So I'm not too far off of that. But the question that I have is, why don't they come out and say, look, we believe that Notre Dame is a lot better than Miami, even though they lost? Freaking great. That's a good thing to say. But, going by wins and losses in trying to fumble it up a little bit is not a great way to go.
Well, I hear you, especially when you look at least how they've got them rated. At least from the last I'm seeing, they had Notre Dame 9th and Miami 15th. That's a pretty big discrepancy there. It does get tough with some of the other rankings though, because you've got BYU a spot ahead of Utah, and I know like you said, by power you would have Utah ahead of BYU, but when they played each other, even though Utah was favored, BYU handled business. So with the amount of different wins that we've had this season, it does get a little tricky, sometimes to have a team that lost to another being below. But I do think that the Miami Hurricanes are probably the one that sticks out the most as far as being down there. In Oklahoma, it's going to be interesting to see what they do this week with Alabama. That's still one of those teams. They're up there, but I'm just not. I say deserve to be where they are, but I'm not. I'm not so sure about Oklahoma. Sometimes you're thinking things you can't necessarily prove it, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, Andrew Clark says if Louisville is the favorite, they're going to lose to SMU. So that's interesting. I don't disagree. SMU has improved quietly. I like that play. I'm going to look at that one later. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen a little bit here to kind of show what I'm talking about. I have Miami 8th in my power ratings. So that is the one I'm missing. And I think just because Miami screws up and their coach can be a bonehead doesn't mean that they're not more powerful than these other teams. I think that I do have Notre Dame slightly ahead of them. I think that's true. I do like Notre Dame a little bit more than Miami, but I have them both in based on power. Most deserving stuff, I don't know. You play games for a reason, right? And you say, well, Miami, lost 2 games. You play games for a reason, but I have a problem with you just saying that SEC, you can put a 3-loss SEC team over a 2-loss Miami team. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with Utah coming in. What if you end up with 2 losses? Well, I guess they would win the Big 12 championship, but let's just say BYU and beats Texas Tech. I want Texas Tech still in there. I'm not going to say a 3-loss Texas or a 3-loss Ole Miss should get in. If you have a problem with that, guys, then leave the SEC. Because what is it more about? Strength or just having everybody involved? At least define your parameters is my point.
Yeah, it does get tricky too with sometimes with the conference champions, because if we just talked about the ACC, as far as when you start to talk about those automatic bids, it's still so many different teams that are not even, ranked in the top 12 that could end up, grabbing a spot. So that gets tricky because when you start to place, Big 12 champ, who right now, I mean, obviously Texas Tech is looking like the best team in the Big 12. When you start to look at, who's going to be there from the Big 12, who's going to be there from the ACC, it could get a little tricky because it's like, well, is it going to be Georgia Tech? Is it going to be SMU? Is it going to be Virginia? Which we'll talk about in a little. So that does get, when you start to see the brackets, I think there's still going to be a lot to change. But ultimately, one thing that I know that we have that we didn't always have that I think we have to remember is that we used to only get 4 teams, and one way or another, there's going to be some debates at the top, but and at the bottom, but we know that the top 4 teams are going to get in, and ultimately they'll get to prove it on the field.
Well, USC is a big one too, because what if they go beat Oregon and they end up with 2 losses, just a 2-loss Big Ten team? They're not keeping that out, so they'll jump everybody, right? They're gonna move all the way up from 17 somewhere in, and they're gonna piss somebody else off. So
along with that, I mean, they've also, along with, like you said, the resume Big Ten, and also it's USC, right? So even with the brand, if you got an opportunity to get them in the playoffs, I mean, for college football, it's hard for them to pass up on that.
100%. Let's get into our buy low, sell high. I always like to ask this for value. It doesn't have to be a game you're necessarily betting this week. Buy low. Have you thought about this yet? I have a buy low team.
Well, as far as a buy low team, and I'm not sure if this is going to be the same as you, but I think for me right now, it's Virginia, a little bit. I know they've got, obviously they're going to end the season with that rivalry game. And when you look at their overall, body of work, I mean, they're winning games, but not really the most impressive strength of schedule, not really the most dominant. And I think that this is a team that has another loss coming up, or maybe 2 losses. I don't think that they're going to get in that conference championship. So Virginia is a buy low team for me. I've got a sell, or I should say sell high team for me. I've got a buy low as well, but I'll let you go ahead.
Oh, no, it's good. I got South Carolina. Lenore Sellers is still playing, right? I mean, it's not, he didn't transfer yet. Of course, there's some fake stuff going out there. I was looking at he's foregoing the rest of the season. No, he's not. They're 19.5 point dogs to Texas A&M. I mean, they're dangerous still. You know, they're
Mhm.
still a dangerous team with that quarterback. I haven't gotten to the window yet with that one, but I'm really eyeing up that one. So, I mean, why are they that misguided in the market when they almost beat Alabama? And that was just a choke on their end. They should have beat Alabama. A couple calls went Alabama's way, if you remember that game. Shocker there, right? But I'd like a buy low on South Carolina, especially this week.
South Carolina has been a tough one for me because you even talk with sellers coming in as far as top five, before the season, and maybe even now. I haven't been looking at too much of the mock drafts as far as that goes, but I think that they've been a team that a lot more was expected from them. But I can say personally for me, when I have backed South Carolina this year, everything that you say, it should be there. But for me, I've just been burned. They've just been such an inconsistent team. I
Hmm.
think that Alabama game was a little bit of a. I think it was a good spot for them. They got up for that game. Um, I don't know. South Carolina has been a hard team for me to get my finger on.
Andrew, you said then Oregon would be out if USC's. I don't think so either. I think Oregon, they'd still throw Oregon in there. They're a big brand name, and they got the Nike money. And I think Oregon, even though they don't have the most impressive wins, they went to Iowa and won. Their loss. I guess the Penn State didn't age well, but so what? That's not their fault. It's just their quarterback, and Penn State's quarterback got hurt. So no, I think they would keep Oregon in. But yeah, no, I agree. South Carolina, even though it's a team you might get burned on a lot, I mean, 19.5 points is what I'm looking at. What the hell? What's going on here? I look in Sagarin, I look at all these. I'm like looking for injuries here. I'm not seeing a ton of them. I'm not sure if I'm not missing anything. If you guys out there watching the shows know that I'm missing something, please tell me before I bet this, because I'm close. I haven't bet it yet, but I'm pretty close. But speaking of bets, let's get into our 6-pack of plays this week. And we've picked some random games all over the board. We'll start with one of my picks, Notre Dame versus Pitt. And David told me he's on one of something here, and we never talk about the sides. So we're either going to agree or disagree, have a little fun. Notre Dame versus Pitt plus 11.5. Pitt home dog, total 55.5. This is a massive game for Notre Dame. It's got playoff implications. And anybody thinks because of that, they're the right side. I'm not sure. I will say I hate what Narduzzi said. Yeah, he says some really stupid crap, man. I don't know if you saw this interview, but he's like saying that this game means nothing. It has nothing to do with the ACC, which is kind of true because you're not making it by beating Notre Dame. You beat Notre Dame, you still are going to get kicked out by the committee. He's right, but that I don't think that means the kids are going to lay down for Notre Dame. So it did put it in kind of a weird spot. But I'm still looking at a home dog at a double digit here, man. And this rivalry goes way back, and the players know this. The spot for Pitt coming off the bye is kind of what I like a little bit. Notre Dame's coming off a freaking cakewalk game against Navy. That was too easy for them. You look at the numbers, Pitt's really stepping up, but they win 5 games in a row. The defense for Pitt ranks 5th in success rate, 7th in defensive rush EPA. I think that's kind of where they slow down Love and Price, the running game over there. They do have the best running backs in Notre Dame, the 2 best tandem in the nation. But if they can't move that ball a little bit against the run, it's going to be the young CJ Carr trying to pass on the road. Mistakes can happen on the road. The Panthers also have a nice 1.48 net yards per play. That's pretty high. Now, Notre Dame's 2.34, but that's about a 0.7 difference, Notre Dame, man, they've had some hiccups on the road against Boston College, right? Against Miami. I don't like that. I just see a lot of more ways Pitt covers this number than Notre Dame blows them out and wins by margin. I'll take the number. Pitt 7-2 against spread. Mason Heinzkel, is that how you say his name? I always mess that up. He's done really well so far, the freshman. And ever since he's started, I don't think they've lost a game. Pitt plus 11.5, my friend. That's where I'm going.
Well, I actually agree with you here, and I've even seen the number up to 12.5 in some places. And this is one of those games where sometimes, just even the stats aside, similar to I had a conversation I had with some people a couple weeks ago when Notre Dame was playing Boston College, and I didn't jump in on that game, but some people asked me if I was going to lay it with with the Irish. And just as far back as I still have memories of that 94 game with Boston College, keeping Notre Dame from the national championship. And so many years after that, Boston College always playing Notre Dame tough. And at some point, you look at Notre Dame right now, they look like a shoe-in for the college football playoff. They're, 11 and a half, 12 and a half point favorite here. You got Syracuse, you got Stanford. It looks like they got a few layups, and they're just going to go ahead and cruise into the playoffs. But no matter what Narduzzi said, sometimes I wonder how much is that really for the media? What is he really saying internally for his players? And I don't care, what year it is. Notre Dame is always a game they're going to get up for. They've got a tough schedule the rest of the way, but Pittsburgh's been having a pretty solid season under the radar. I mean, they lost that backyard brawl game. We'll get West Virginia. Pretty much anything goes there. Louisville, a solid team, and Pittsburgh's been playing well. And I think that this number's a bit too high. After playing Navy, no matter when it is, it's always tough for the next week. How does Notre Dame get up for this game? And even if they win, you get 11 and a half points, getting more than 10 on the road. I just think that this is just one of those spots we see it time and time again. Even early in the season, Texas A&M was getting disrespected. So many times we see these lines with Notre Dame that just don't make sense. And I like Pittsburgh as well in this one. On the other side at 10 points, I think that I think Pitt competes. So I agree with you.
Awesome. Glad you agree. That's great. We're on this one. Maybe this even gets sweeter. I don't know why it's not getting knocked down more than this. A lot of public money coming in on Notre Dame. Oregon State versus Tulsa. Tulsa plus 4.5, total 48.5. David, you picked this one. I'm excited to hear what you have.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm sure that this is going to be the must watch for so many people here. But obviously, on the surface, you got a 2-8 Oregon State team and a 2-7 Tulsa team. But this game is in Tulsa, and Tulsa, even though they're 2-7. They had that win earlier against Oklahoma State, who, they're terrible. But recently, Tulsa, they've been competing. But the thing is, in their conference, in the American Conference, the teams that they've been losing to some teams that at least know how to play offense. In Tulane, Memphis, East Carolina had a 1-point loss to Temple in overtime, and FAU. Now they're going up against an Oregon State team that 112th in offensive efficiency. And this team, if you look at their resume, they only have one win against an FBS team. They beat Lafayette, and then they got up for that Washington State game. They won that game 10-7. How did they follow that up? They followed that up with a loss against Sam Houston, which they have rated the only two teams in FBS below Sam Houston as far as being Charlotte and UMass. Even in that game, they outgained Sam Houston State 474 to 157 in total yards and still found a way to lose that game. Tulsa, I know Oregon State's not a Power 4, Power 5 school anymore, but I still think that Tulsa being at home, when you're a team like Tulsa, you're still playing that Pac. They still have that Pac-12 name, right? Regardless of what the state of the conference is now. And I think that this is a game that Tulsa is going to get up for. As far as Oregon State, I think the only game they're going to care about, they've got a weird schedule this year. They played Washington State once, and they actually play them again. They both do a home and home in the same season, since there's only 2 games in the conference. So after laying an egg against Sam Houston State, now you're going to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I actually think that the Golden Hurricane, this is a team that has not quit. They've still been competing. Now they're actually playing a terrible offensive team. And I like the plus 1.5 with Tulsa. So it's a little bit ugly, but I like Tulsa in this one.
And it's 2.5 in some books too. So look for that. And DraftKings is plus 2.5. Beavs, worst special teams of all time. It's right, Andrew. They are pretty bad. What's funny about the Beavs is you never know what you're going to get. They're 2-8. Their season's lost. They're terrible. They won the game they needed to, which was against Washington State, right? That was the kind of their hurrah. You don't know what's going to show up here. And it's this, I think this team, Good points by you, David. I think that it still feels like a power four, power five type win. And I think this is a much bigger game for Tulsa. And I think they can kind of rally the troops here and possibly get this one done. It's not like I'm far off on the power rating either on this. So I totally get you what you're saying. I'm definitely going to write this one down and take another deep dive into it. But I like what you're saying on that one for sure. Let's move on to the next game. Colorado State versus New Mexico. New Mexico 14.5, minus 14.5, total 15.5. I mean, if you told me this was minus 14.5 before the season, I would have been like, wow, let's bet some Colorado State, man. So much has changed this year, obviously, with the coach fired over there in Colorado State. And, this is kind of an under the radar situation for New Mexico because they're kind of still in it here. They're forced to be reckoned with. With the San Diego State loss, this team, since San Diego State lost, I should say, they have a shot to make the Mountain West title game, and I think they're going to be motivated here. So Colorado State, hopeless. I mean, they're kind of a hopeless team right now. 2 wins. They have no chance of making a bowl game right now. There's a lot more chance that they're going to have some quit in them, especially if they start losing by 7, 10, 13 points, right? Rams, negative 1.35 yards per play. They're ranked 95th in offensive EPA, 118th on defensive EPA. Lobos are actually pretty powerful, and I just saw them beat Utah State recently. They ranked 41st in offensive EPA, 68th in defensive success rate. Really nice wins. They beat UCLA by a lot on the road, right? I think the Lobos are going to clean up here, and I just kind of like laying the points. I got a better number than this. I got it when it opened at 13.5. But I would lay it all the way up to 16.5, in my opinion, on this game. I think Colorado State is live to lose by a lot. New Mexico's live for a blowout. I'm laying the points, minus 14.5, two stars.
And I do agree with you on this one. And one thing I'll point out with this, last week, sometimes you see these lines and you get caught up with, do the odds makers know something that you don't? And I stayed off of that UNLV Colorado State game because it just looked way too easy. On paper, it looked like UNLV would kill Colorado State, and I think I overthought it a little bit. And I was like, well, UNLV is going to Colorado State. That could be. And I also looked at the history that UNLV going to Colorado State historically had not been a good spot for the Rebels. So I stayed off of it. And obviously, the way that initially my first thought was that UNLV would kill Colorado State, and they did. And now we've got a situation. This is one of those games when you even look at the line at 14.5, you first wonder, you're like, okay, wait, is this game in Colorado State? Because I know we could get weather, we could get snow, but the game in New Mexico, yeah, I don't see the side for Colorado State, not bowl eligible. I mean, game before that, they got destroyed by a Wyoming team that just is not very strong at the skill positions on offense at all. So I don't see how Colorado State keeps up. So I agree with you on that one.
All right. Yeah, I think this could be an easy walk away victory. Hopefully by halftime it's decided. And I wouldn't mind a first half bet either on the New Mexico side as well. Next game, we have another banger. UTEP versus Missouri State. Missouri State minus 4.5, total 49.5. Just before you came on, David, I talked about over-under trends. Missouri State is the biggest team to the under, only one over this whole year. What are your thoughts on this one?
It's funny. I was on that only over this whole year when they started the season against USC. I thought that they were going to be a strong over team. That hasn't been the case, but I like a side in this one. And looking at this, Missouri State, this is their first year. They moved up to FBS, so having a strong season now in Conference USA, but they're not eligible for a bowl, so they want to finish the season as strong as they can. They've now rolled off 4 straight wins. They got a quarterback in Jacob Clark, who's been around for a while now. This is his 4th year at Missouri State, so a lot of experience with this program. I mean, his college career started way back in 2019 with Minnesota, so definitely, motivated coming off wins against Middle Tennessee State, New Mexico State, FIU, and Liberty. And you look at their losses this year. We talked about the USC game. Obviously, they got blown out in that one. SMU, we talked about SMU today, tough team, and they lost a close game to Western Kentucky. So with this being at home, UTEP has been up and down. It's always tough traveling from El Paso. And even though it's late, this is the homecoming game for Missouri State. So they're not going to be let down with it. They're not eligible for a bowl game. They're still new to FBS. I think even though it's 4.5, I think that this is a game that Missouri State gets up for. They've got the momentum on their side, and I think it's going to be a tough travel spot for UTEP. So a little bit ugly, but the 4.5 with the Missouri State Bears, I'm going to go ahead and lay it.
All right, the line tells you to lay it here, 4.5. It's not like it's getting close to 3 right now. UTEP, tired team for sure. I don't see anything wrong with that. Missouri State, very, very due. I have the number 5.5, so I'm definitely on the side from a number standpoint as what you're throwing down there. Penn State versus Michigan State. Michigan State plus 7.5, minus 115 on DraftKings. There's a lot of sevens out there too, but try to shop this one along. Total 49.5. You know me, I'm going doggy dog right here. It's funny. I felt fortunate last 2 weeks ago with Michigan State to push against when I was on Minnesota -3. Michigan State outplayed Minnesota in Minnesota. All right, they did. And there was a really terrible call that they picked up the flag on a clear guy pulling his jersey pass interference. I was like, thank God I covered, but I still call that out as one of those things. I pushed, but I called it out as like I should have lost that bet. Penn State went through a gauntlet, man. Northwestern loss was terrible. They lost their quarterback and then lost by 1 to Iowa. But if you remember, Iowa should have made some 2-point conversions there and won by 4. Playing a strong first half against Ohio State, really a lot of heart, and then just crumbles in the second half. And then they almost beat Indiana last week. All came to the final play. Indiana strikes them down at the very end. I mean, I don't know how this team can get up again. They don't have a coach. They have a coach that's gone. Let's put it that way. Both of these teams are sitting there with 3 wins. Michigan State's coming off the bye. I like that. They are coming off the bye. As bad as this team has looked this year, they're still only a net negative 0.51 yards per play. Penn State only 0.21 net yards per play, almost even themselves. Struggling with the backup quarterback, Grunkmeyer. One thing I like for Sparty is the whole Aiden Childs thing with that quarterback. I'm not sure if it's going to be Alessio Milovic. I think it's Milovic. But I think that Alessio kid's done really well. And I think I'd probably rather see him, but Aiden Childs is fine too. The quarterback situation is going to be equal, either the backup or the starters playing. The original starter in Childs. Michigan State's in a great spot. Jonathan Smith has been disappointing, but I think after the bye is kind of where the kids recharge, realize it's a big name like Penn State. What does Penn State care about this game? They had preseason number 1 seed, not just playoff expectations. They had preseason number 1 seeds, dude. I don't see why they need to win or win with margin or even – I think Michigan State wins outright. I'm taking plus 7.5 for 2.5 stars here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. I mean, the 7.5 is a good number. I don't think that I don't know. I'm not. Aiden Childs is one of those guys that on the surface, I mean, the numbers don't look bad, but when I watch them, I just don't like what I see. And this Michigan State team, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they also had, I know they've had the bye week, but I feel like they played so tough against Michigan, losing that tough game to Minnesota. I just don't really trust Michigan State. Grunkmeyer is starting to get a little bit more comfortable. Not the game that I'm the most in love with. I guess what jumps out at me for this, I have a hard time thinking that we see a lot of points in this one. Looking at the total in this one, 49.5, I'm kind of leaning to the under in this one. I don't have a lot of faith in either of these offenses to really go up and down the field. I think that this is going to be a little bit of an ugly one. I'm not sure what the weather's going to be like in East Lansing. Both of these teams are winless in the Big Ten, so that should be a little bit of the motivation there. So this will be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm leaning on the under. It seems like a lot of points to lay for Penn State with that offense right now, but I have a hard time trusting Sparty, but we'll see what happens.
Fair enough. It's going to be 11 mile per hour winds, not too windy, 58 degrees, 26% chance of rain. So probably no rain. So, but yeah, I get I'm not betting the over in this game. That's for sure. I see what you're saying there. I think it's a great spot for Sparty. So this is one of my favorite plays of the week. Let's move on to the next game. We have Washington State. Look at you go from Oregon State to Washington State this week, my man. Just representing the Pac-2. That is impressive, David. Louisiana Tech is going to Washington State. Washington State is laying a monster at -8.5, total 44.5. What do you have for us in this one?
Well, Louisiana Tech going to Washington State. One thing I always kind of concerned about right now, you got those guys from Louisiana going over to the Pacific Northwest, and they've had a little bit of, I'm not sure exactly who's playing quarterback for Louisiana Tech. They've had some injuries, they've had some shakeups. They've had 3 guys play quarterback in the last game, and out of their 3 quarterbacks, 2 of them from the state of Texas, 1 of them from California. So always kind of wonder about that going to the elements. And Washington State, been a little bit up and down, but this has been a strong physical defensive team. They've had a hard time moving the ball, but they, at the beginning of the season, they had a little bit of a rough start. But you look at now 21 points or less, they've held their opponents 2-4 out of the the last 5 games. And they, looking at some of the different games, playing on Ole Miss, Virginia. I'm sorry, I should say they scored 21 points or less than 4 out of their last 5. But they played tough against Ole Miss. They played tough against Virginia. They only gave up 24 to Ole Miss, only gave up 22 to Virginia. And I think that this is going to be a low-scoring game. Point I'm getting at. The one game where Washington State got over 21 points, they scored at 28 points against Toledo, and that one was still a little bit deceiving. They had some plays where their defense put them in good field, and they didn't have to go down the field too far. So overall, Washington State not scoring a lot of points. They've held some strong offenses, in Ole Miss, Virginia, and Toledo down. And you got all the Louisiana Tech teams that shake up the quarterback going out west in a colder climate. There's a reason this has dropped. The total was at 47.5. Now it's down to 44.5. There's 145 lots still out there, but I like the under the total in this game.
Okay. So the under for you, and we had a little quick little audio issue here going on here, and a little grumble. Hopefully that clears up. No, I don't disagree. I don't know who's playing quarterback either. The line's telling me the main guy, Brady or Baker, Blake Baker is not playing, right? So that's what I'm assuming. Is it going to be Kukuk or Bullock? I don't know if any of these guys are going to be able to score, right? It's a
right. I was thinking really lighting up the score here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to try to refresh this real quick while we go moving to some hodgepodge. So please bear with me a second here to see if we can clear this up. So a little hodgepodge action. Really good games to offer here. So looking at Minnesota, they're a big dog against Oregon, right? 25.5 on Friday. I find that really interesting. Have you looked at that game on Friday?
Yeah. I mean, as explosive as Oregon is, I think that's just too many points to me. It's crazy. I know it hasn't been the prettiest, but this is still a Minnesota team that 6-3 overall, 4-2 in the Big Ten. And PJ Fleck, I think, is still a really good coach. I mean, Minnesota does a nice job of controlling the ball. They're physical. And even though I don't see them winning this game, I do think that they're going to have a good game plan to at least hold on to the ball as long as possible. And if they can just get a couple scores in this game, I think that number is going to be hard for Oregon to cover. They coming off of a physical game against Iowa. I think that is you're looking at a total of 44.5 and a spread of 25.5. They're not expecting Minnesota to do much of anything with a total that low. Getting more than 24 points, I like Minnesota as the dog. It's one of those games that's tough to feel great about, but I like Minnesota.
All right, I'm going to make a play with you. Let's both take Minnesota plus 25.5 here. I agree. I think that this is a terrible spot for Oregon. Now they got USC on deck and just got through that really weird game with Iowa. And what's interesting is Oregon was hurt coming into that game, and they still have guys banged up. I'm guessing they look at this as kind of a cakewalk, probably still rest some of those skilled players. And, Minnesota gets a cover here, and, a nice little fumble action in the rain. And man, it's been raining a lot at Oregon games. They must be used to it by now, right? Wearing some wetsuits under those dang pads, right? So I just think that, yeah, it's a great spot for Minnesota. I'm going Minnesota this game too. Let's do that for sure. I love that. So I'll make that an official play for the podcast as well. More back to Hodgepodge. Yeah, I mean, the earlier week games, nothing too exciting to me. Troy, Old Dominion. Old Dominion is 11.5. I would lean Old Dominion there. I think Troy's got a terrible offense, but Troy's kind of been a little bit of kryptonite for me too. I've seen to fall on the wrong side a few times when I bet against Troy, so I don't really not too excited for that one. And that's the only Thursday game too. Clemson Louisville's on Friday. You got Louisville -3. Man, what the hell happened against Cal last week to Louisville, dude? I couldn't explain that. When I saw that line go down, I thought, okay, I'm going to go a little bit on Louisville. I went a little bit, and I was a little bit wrong because he freaking lost outright, dude. What happened?
Yeah, Louisville kind of had that, even last year, and it cost them a bit when they went to Stanford and, laid egg. I remember because I was on them in that game, and all signs pointed to them just blowing out Stanford. They went out there and they laid an egg. This time they did it at home against Cal. These are really two tough teams to trust. I mean, you look at the 3.5 getting the hook with Clemson. I mean, it looks like that should be the play, but Clemson also looked like a national championship contender on paper before the season started, and that hasn't panned out well. Coming off of that win against Florida State, no matter where Florida State is, it's still one of those games that I think teams get up for. I don't feel great about this one, especially with the 3.5. I guess I'm kind of leaning Louisville, but I can tell you I don't think this is going to be a game I'm going to have anything on.
Yeah, I think it's a good number. Wisconsin versus Indiana. My Badgers finally won last week. I was on them last week. Little money on sprinkle always is nice when it's plus double digits. Indiana's lane 29.5, total 44.5. I don't want to get in the way of Indiana. I mean, to be honest with you, like, does my numbers come up to 29.5? Not quite. I think I have it like 26 or 27. But dude, I mean, Indiana had a bad look last week against Penn State. I think this is just one where Cignetti's just going to keep scoring and scoring until the cows come home, dude.
Yeah, Wisconsin, I give them credit. I mean, as bad as the season's been going, they've still been playing. They've still been competing and playing tough. But yeah, with Cignetti after the close call last week, Indiana's one of those teams that could lay it on. And as you mentioned, them keep scoring and scoring. I mean, I expect Wisconsin to play tough defensively, but Wisconsin can't really score. So I wouldn't really want to. I'm not crazy about that 29.5, but
yeah,
man, taking Wisconsin is not something I'd take. I would feel good about it. Kind of has to be Wisconsin, Indiana or pass.
Arkansas LSU. It's funny. It's like Nussmeier starting, or are they going to put Van Buren in? As Van Buren had the better game when he came in last week. I think they probably still go back to Nussmeier. Not that it's not much of a big difference. Arkansas coming off a bye, but they're also a coachless, feckless team. It's this total's 56.5, but I think that's it's funny you think overs in this because of the defenses, but actually LSU's defense I thought played well against Alabama. It was the fact that a lot of calls went Alabama's way last week, and it was LSU, just couldn't score in the red zone. But no, I'm probably staying away from this one too. But I think I would lean LSU.
Yeah, I want to look at it a little bit more. I mean, just initial reaction is the over. I mean, just the way Arkansas has been giving up so many points. I mean, with LSU, only putting up 9 points against Alabama. That's Alabama, but they've been able to score, and really more than anything, Arkansas has just not been able to stop anybody. You're thinking that the way that Arkansas has been playing defense, that can LSU get to 40 on their own? So I don't know if I would love the side. I guess I'd say LSU, and the over would be my initial reactions on that, but I haven't made a play on this one yet.
Why don't we go to Alabama then? Why not? I mean, I saw money coming in on Oklahoma. It seems like Oklahoma's kind of being a little public-y. I don't know what that means. Here's my problem. I just think Alabama's hard to bet against because everything just falls their way constantly. And, you see them struggle against South Carolina. I don't even care about the Florida State game. We don't got to bring that up. But there's just a lot of fortunate shit that happens. But I will say that Kalen DeBoer is not trying to pour on points at the end of a game. He's just trying to win the game. And, I think this is a last desperate attempt spot, I guess, for John Mateer in Oklahoma to make the playoffs, right? I hate going against Alabama. I don't know. I think my number's Alabama -7, to be honest.
Yeah, once we start to get to the games like this, these are always tough for me sometimes. So I like those ugly ones because you get the Alabama, the Oklahoma historic classic matchup that I know that there's so much influence on. I'm leaning Alabama in this one, but I mean it's hard to love it. I can really see both sides, but for me, I think I like Alabama right now at home with that 5.5.
You know what I don't mind is Oklahoma like a first quarter. I think they come out swinging off the bye.
Yeah.
I think you'll see like something like whoa, and then just at the end Alabama pours it on type thing. I could see that first half, first quarter type thing.
One of those games is closer, and then in the fourth quarter, it kind of, if you just look at the final score, it doesn't tell the story.
Exactly. This Iowa USC game is also weird. USC's been really good at home. Teams from the Big Ten traveling to California has done pretty bad. It's at 7, but I think it's 7 for a reason. I just don't know if Iowa's got the firepower to keep up with USC when it's not freaking, monsoon, right? It's one of those. And I bet Oregon -5.5 last week, and I lost that one. But I also felt that Iowa was real fortunate with a few explosive plays themselves, and something you don't really characteristically see with Iowa. I'm probably staying away from this game, but I would bet the over actually 49.5 maybe.
Yeah, Iowa's been a lot, putting up more points at least than in previous seasons. Yeah, this is one of those games I would kind of think I'd want to take. I want to see Iowa do well in this situation, but I think USC is the play. It's been a while. Iowa's been playing so many of these games at home. I mean, they played tough against Oregon. They played tough against Indiana. Both of those games were at home. Penn State was at home. Last time they went on the road, I mean, they dominated, but that was Wisconsin. That was a Wisconsin team that's very, very different than this USC team. Now they're going to California. I think that USC is the play here because if they get ahead and Iowa has to come from behind, I just don't see how they do it. So I think this is one of those games. The home field advantage means a lot, and I think USC is the right side.
You know who's been the biggest choker this year is Texas State. I'm looking at them, and it looks like they took some money from 5.5 down to 4 now at Southern Miss. Freaking Texas State, man. I haven't want to bet on those damn bastards because they choked away every single lead that they've had in the fourth quarter. It blows my mind how bad they've been in the end of games. It's almost like a storybook that you can just guarantee that they're going to lose at the end of the game. But still, you're still looking at a powerful offense, and Southern Miss is a kind of team with Huff over there, Charlie Huff, that's cool with winning by 3 points, 2 points, I was looking at this one, and it's like Texas State should have a way better record than they are at 3-6, but they also have a bowl possibility if they win out. Ugh, I just wanted to bring it up. What do you think?
Yeah, I will say this one here. I mean, with I don't know if they're going to get into a bowl game. I will say that with Charles Huff coming over from Marshall. I mean, that team last year, I think Marshall just didn't play the whole game. Those guys, so many of those guys didn't play. That's how much the guys think about them. And with them being 5-0 in the conference, I think that this is a team that has just gotten better as the season's gone along. That number is a little tough. I mean, it does look like when you see how close the games have been, these two teams are closer than the records indicate. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Texas State should cover. but I can't get behind them here the way that the momentum's going. I'll probably pass. I just can't trust Texas State.
You know what's funny is that this I do have Southern Miss 28-1 from preseason to win the conference. Now they're going to be massive dogs against James Madison, but it's nice to have that when they're 5-0 in the conference here. You know, they should be able to beat South Alabama and Troy here. So hopefully that kind of at least gives me a hedging option, you know, kind of getting to the end there. Do you hedge some of your futures at the end?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say, and I should have I brought this up during the buy low sell high, and I guess it could be, you know, futures for some lines, but I know that the next time they play is Wednesday, so people can get ahead of it early. But I just want to give a little bit of love to a team to buy low on is Kent State. You know, had them to cover against Akron last season. I mean, this has been a program that's had so many ups and downs, so mostly downs. But now they're 4-6. You know, they could actually sneak into a bowl game. They upset Akron. And I think that this next Wednesday, the line's not posted yet, but you got a Central Michigan actually playing on the 12th. I think that Kent State, it could be a sneaky team for all those people that are, you know, thinking about those random MAC games just to get a little bit ahead of that. I think Kent State, when that line comes out, could be a little bit of a sneaky underdog against Central Michigan for next week. And as far
Okay.
as yeah.
I like it. Yeah, no, I like what you're doing there. That's interesting. Kent State has been a quietly improving team out in the MAC. So you know your MAC. Yeah, here's some fun. How about like an Ole Miss against Florida, 14.5? What version of Florida do we get here on out? I don't think it's a good version. I think Lane Kiffin's kind of funny, like retweeting the fact that Lagway's bad plays and all that stuff. And some people think Lane Kiffin's going to be coaching Florida next year. I think Florida should make a run at him, but he'll be in better recruiting grounds if he went to Florida. That's for sure. And Lane can do that with his little transfer portal. I guess he's doing well in Ole Miss too. It must be great to be in that situation as a head coach.
It's so random. I was actually watching his. I didn't even realize it was out till yesterday. I was actually randomly watching that Lane Kiffin 30 for 30 that's I think came out this year. That was kind of talking about all the different places that he's gone. I don't know. I think he's gonna stay at Ole Miss. I'm wondering with Florida. Is Florida in today's culture and NIL does Gainesville, does it have the same appeal that it used to have? You know, if you could get that get that money coming in at Ole Miss. I mean, when you look at the expectations,
Well,
these all is it the same?
Florida has more money. They do. They're one of the richest schools out there with Texas A&M, and they were paying illegally before. I think that's what you mentioned. You know, I just think that their basketball team just won the championship. You know, although what's funny, you'll see something on Ole Miss for me from when we get into our next section real quick in the beer bet bangers. I think that I'd probably jump to Florida because you can always be welcome back. You know, it's better to start low and move your way up instead of replace greatness, you know? So it's kind of like it'll keep him relevant. Like if he doesn't win at Ole Miss in the next 2 years or make the playoffs, then they're going to be pissed at him, right? Why don't you get a 5-year contract at Florida, man? That's what I'm talking about.
I guess it'll be interesting to see. I guess just from being watching that yesterday, he was talking so much about, you know, going from Tennessee to USC, which, you know, obviously made sense. And then they got hit with the, you know, Reggie Bush thing, and even way early in his career, taking the job to the Raiders. He's had a little bit of a history of, you know, kind of going to that more lucrative position and then getting there and things not really going the way that he expects. So, I mean, having good success at Ole Miss, does he do it again? I mean, you know, your money talks. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Georgia playing Texas. -6 total 48.5. I don't want to mess with Georgia. Georgia and Alabama are two teams that I'm not interested in getting in front of. I think the SEC wants them to be good. I don't get me wrong. Texas is a big name and Texas is coming off the bye, but I haven't seen enough with Arch. And I actually think Stockton's the better quarterback. You know, I understand this line at 6. It's probably pretty close to where I have it. I'll just tell you right now, I have Texas favored by 8 points. I have Texas by 8, so it kind of tells me almost to bet it, but I don't like a team off the bye, so I punish or I give Texas another point and a half off the bye. But what about you?
Yeah, I hear you. Texas is one of those teams that I almost want to. You're looking at that 5.5, and where Texas was supposed to be, and really Texas. I mean, as much as people have been down on them, I mean, they're still right there. But man, getting ahead of Georgia, it's one of those things. I mean, one thing I love about with college football, there's so many games to pick and so many games to bet on. Even though I kind of like Texas in this spot, I mean, you said it perfectly. Do I really want to go against Georgia? I mean, there's so many different options out here.
Yeah,
Do I
I know
really want
there
to bet
is.
against Georgia? Not really.
And East Carolina's laying 2.5 against Memphis, which is a massive decider where it comes to the American Athletic Conference champion.
My bad. Is that me or let me see? Maybe I should refresh here. Let's see.
Staring at it. I think Memphis's quarterback's banged up, but he's going to play. And East Carolina is probably in a good spot here to do another upset here. I did not like what I saw from Memphis last week. It looks like we lost David, so he'll be back here in a second here. There you are, Dave. My internet's been in and out, so I think that's me. Would you have a lean in this East Carolina Memphis game?
This one's a little tricky because I want to take Memphis from looking at it, but I mean they are going on the road, and East Carolina has been one of those teams. Just sometimes you just have personal history with teams, and East Carolina has been a team I'd say over the last 3 seasons or so. When I've gone against them, it hasn't really gone well. With this home field, it almost looks like this is right where it should be. It's almost tempting to take the points with Memphis, but it's still at 2.5. So I'm leaning toward Memphis, but I don't love it. What about you? I didn't hear your I heard you talking about.
I said that East Carolina's probably is in a great spot, and I think Memphis has kind of been choking a little bit. Their quarterback's a little bit banged up, but he's been playing through injuries. And Memphis last week, you saw that against Tulane, and that line went down, and I decided to buy back for almost about 2/3 of my amount, and I shouldn't have bought back because they lost outright to Tulane. I had a nice 7.5 with Tulane. I was going for a middle, but now a situation where I think East Carolina is just a greatly improved game. And to be honest with you, that BYU game, very misleading final score when they played BYU. They went to Tulane and lost, but I get the number. I get the number at 2.5. I lean East Carolina here, but I don't know. I'm wondering where the public's going to go on this. If it drives it down to 1 or something, I could see myself playing a little East Carolina, but I just don't know what to do with this one. And a lot to solve here yet in the American Athletic Conference, because you got North Texas sitting there with one loss. That's the team to beat. And North Texas only lost to Memphis themselves, right? They lost to South Florida, I believe. Yeah, South Florida. Yeah, they got blown out by South Florida, and now they kind of have an easy route, I think. North Texas does, to the championship game. So this is, it's really between Memphis, East Carolina, and Tulane.
Yeah, and even even North Texas though. I mean that game, that was like a second half blowout. They're still such a that South Florida team, and we talked about them running the playoff, but that team could put up points in a hurry. You can have one bad quarter and things can get away from you there.
Absolutely. Let's get to our segment, Beer Bet Bangers. Any long shots that you like, could be any sport, could be this week plus money. Anything you looked at to throw some beer money on.
I mean, it's a bit ugly, but of course that's what this is all about. Virginia Tech. I'm not gonna tell you how great Virginia Tech is, but going to Florida State, and Florida State. I mean, ever since it seems like that first game of the season is where they basically laid it all on the line. I mean, this team is not, they lost to Stanford, they bounced back against Wake Forest, coming off of a loss against Clemson. But how do they get up for this game? I get it. It's 13.5 points, Florida State being favored, but even looking at Virginia Tech, like I said, Florida State still has that name. We've got, plus 450 on the money line. I'm not, saying put it's beer money, but I do like I think Virginia Tech is worth a shot.
Okay,
or
I like it.
Don't be too quick to throw Florida State in your money line parlays. Mississippi State as well. I know Missouri's a tough place to play. This one's not as huge, but plus 225. I think Mississippi State, despite the record in the SEC, this is a team that has played, better than they've been much improved as opposed to last season. So I do think that is another one to go ahead and take a shot out there.
I love it. I'm gonna pivot over to college basketball, and I'm going to go with Ole Miss to win it all at 100-1. I like Chris Beard. I think Chris Beard's got these guys looking great so far. But I also say split that 12-pack of beer into two bets, or whatever case of beer into two 12-packs. Bet 27-1 to make the Final Four. That's the way I like to make my future bets now in college basketball, because I think that it's hard. You got 6 games. You're bothered about hedging. Well, instead of worrying about hedging, get them to the Final Four with another bet, and that way that's your hedge almost, right? So I say put a little bit on Ole Miss to make the Final Four at 27-1, and put them to win it all at 100-1. The only bets I make right now in college basketball are big numbers, David. So that's always what I'm looking at this time of year. So that's my beer bet banger. It's going to take all the way till April, maybe mid-March. We'll see if they crap out to find out if we're cashing that, baby.
So when you say looking at the big numbers, like the big numbers for futures, or do you apply that also to like the day-to-day, game-to-game as well?
Futures, but I will say every dog I bet that's plus 3.5 or more, I sprinkle the money line. So 3.5, you're looking at plus 135, plus 140. So I'll put like 5 to 10% of my bet on the money line. So I always do that when it comes to numbers. But there's people that are just money line bettors, and just look for dogs all week, and I get that. I'm a spread and a little sprinkle on the money line. That's my philosophy. What about you?
Yeah, I like to with the money line. When it comes to the money line, I'm the same way. Like I said, if it's a dog like that, to sprinkle on it. When it comes to laying the extra juice, if it's a favorite and it's 2.5 or 1.5, I will take the money line or just stay away. As small as it can seem, there's so many times I've taken, that 1.5, or, and the game has fallen on one. One thing too about college basketball right now, with so many different teams, I'm always kind of curious to ask people this. How much weight do you put in, into the market with the line moves? Do you have, like, for me, I'll just say this, like, there's certain teams that I think I have a good feel on. And if I like where the number is, I'll fire away before really kind of worrying about it. There's other times where I'll look at, the market's moves, and then there might be some games that I'll look at that weren't initially on my radar. But when there's just so many games out there, how much attention do you kind of pay attention to the line movement? How much do you trust really the market at this point, when we really are still learning so much about these teams?
Timing is important. Like I complained to you about the Duke move earlier this week, earlier today, right before our show. I think the timing on it is kind of like when big money comes in on a Wednesday, right? When the limits are high. That worries me a little bit that it happened today. If it's right in the beginning, I'm not as worried. I have a handicap on the game, and I always look for things I miss, but I never let it get me down. Usually I'm on the right side of line move, but if you want to look at my CLV losses this year, there's plenty of great CLV thrown in the gutter, right? And so it doesn't always matter. I think I only make a play on the other side if it passes my number enough to go past 53% winning percentage. That's when I buy back a little bit, and it's not always a full buyback, but you have to have a number. That's my philosophy, and timing is important. If it's right before the game, it doesn't bother me at all, because it could be a lot of different things,
Yeah, I've noticed now at this time of the year in college basketball, especially when it comes to totals, man, some of these games, like, you could get, if you jump on it early versus late, man, you could get like 7, 8, 9 point, 9 point swings on some of these totals.
Oh, yeah.
Really middle it and, get it both
Absolutely.
ways.
Oh, it's college basketball is just a whole nother thing. You see some freaking 10-point moves on the totals from the starts. Yeah, they don't know what they're doing either. They're trying to let the market massage it themselves and come up with a number before they put their limits up. And that's kind of the best way to do it. That way they're handicapping using Ken Palm. They're using the Bart Torviks. They're just using the efficiency sites like we do. They're not stupid. They're not going to put extra time into it. And you almost look at it. It's like almost every number they put out is very close to that, and they'll shade a little bit on certain sides for injuries and things like that. It's not like they don't do complete due diligence, but for the most part, it's not well thought out. But it's okay because they let the market decide before they up the bet size, and that's just how the smart sports books run, especially the ones that are the leaders putting the numbers out there, right?
Yeah. Do you have any like beer money other like things for the NFL? One other thing I'll kind of throw out there, and I know that
Go
they
for it.
they choke in the playoffs almost every year, but I think that the Baltimore Ravens right now, at least to get to win the AFC right now, it's about plus 700 is another decent one. I mean, you look at a team that's 4-5, but they are still by far favored to win the AFC North. Got a game against Cleveland, got a game against the Jets. Point being, Baltimore looks like they're going to get in the playoffs. You got the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, they're the favorite, but the odds are reflecting that. And everything else, Buffalo Bills shaky, Colts are shaky. I think that at plus 700, Baltimore is at least, like I said, worth a beer money shot.
I like it, man. I bet them when they were 1-4, 1-5, whatever it was, to win the AFC North for plus 185. So I'm with you, man. I think there was a ton of value on Baltimore coming on in here, man. And I think that's a great bet. But you know what else is great? Mr. David Delano right here at Get Sports Strong. David, awesome job today. Really enjoyed talking to you as usual. Could you tell our listeners and viewers where to get your great information?
Yeah, you can check me out at Get Sports Strong on X, getsportstrong.com, and also Winnable / David Delano. And I don't know, can I do something like special for your show on here? Or
Absolutely.
okay, so if people want to go to winnable.com / David Delano, use promo code OB for this show, and you can get for any of the packages over there, use promo code OB and you will get 60% off. So go ahead and check that out. It'll be
Oh,
there for limited time.
that's a massive discount, 60% off. Awesome. We'll find David. He's got it posted up there at Get Sports Strong. Use the promo code OB, baby. See if you can get some of his great information. David puts a lot of work into it. David, thanks again. We'll be tweeting this weekend. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks so much. Always a pleasure, and good luck to you this week.